Long ago, in a forgotten era, a kind-hearted but not very wise king ruled a peaceful little kingdom. Though his heart was generous, his mind often felt troubled. He longed for intelligent and sincere people, people who could guide him, strengthen his state, and help his land prosper. But his ministers were useless. They only showed up to give shallow advice and collect heavy salaries. This thought often disturbed the king. One day, tired of the burden of governance, he decided to clear his mind. He gathered his courtiers and went for a ride into the forest. After hours of wandering among green trees and fresh winds, the king began the journey back. But suddenly, he stopped. Under a large tree, he saw a strange man sitting alone, talking to himself, laughing at moments, frowning the next, completely lost in his own world. From afar, he looked like a madman. Curiosity filled the king's heart. He rode closer and asked gently, "Young man, are you mad?" The man looked up, smiled confidently, and said, "Mad? You are mad. Your entire court is mad. I am perfectly fine." The king and his ministers were stunned. Something about the man felt odd, half madness, half brilliance. A strange confidence radiated from him. The ministers, threatened by this mysterious stranger, quickly whispered among themselves. "If the king takes him seriously, our importance will fade," one muttered. "He seems half crazy. Bring him to the palace. He can't harm us," another said. The king, still intrigued, agreed. But on the way, the man suddenly turned his horse and tried to run away. The king's guards chased him, caught him, and brought him back. When they reached the palace, a shocking scene awaited them. People were celebrating, waving flags, clapping with relief. The king asked, confused, "What has happened?" The people replied, "Your Majesty, the path you took today was full of enemy soldiers lying in ambush. We feared you would never return, but you changed your route and survived." The king was silent for a moment. Slowly, he looked at the strange man. It was because of him that the path had changed. Because of him, the king was alive. In that moment, the king made a decision. He ordered, "Prepare an honored seat for this man. From today, he will stay with me." Jealousy instantly began burning in the ministers' hearts. The ministers secretly gathered. "We must disgrace him," one said. "We must get rid of him forever," another added. Their jealousy had blinded them. The first conspiracy. The next morning, a group of ministers approached the madman. They said sweetly, "Our dear friend, do you know how the royal court begins?" He shook his head. One whispered, "The court opens only when someone slaps the king. It is a tradition." The innocent man believed them immediately. The next day, when the king sat on his throne, the madman quietly walked behind him and slapped him sharply on the neck. The crown flew off the king's head, and a deadly scorpion crawled out from beneath it. If the king had worn it, he would have died instantly. The king stood stiff, realizing what had happened. Slowly, he turned and embraced the madman. "You saved my life," he whispered gratefully. He gifted him a beautiful palace. The second conspiracy. The ministers grew restless. They tried again. They told him, "Tomorrow when the king sits, pull his chair. You will receive half the kingdom." He agreed innocently. The following morning, as the king prepared to sit, the madman pulled the chair away. The king stumbled, but caught himself. He turned and noticed one leg of the throne was already broken. Someone had secretly tampered with it. If the king had sat, the throne would have collapsed, injuring him badly, or worse. Once again, the king embraced the man. "You have protected me again. You will now lead my army." The ministers were terrified. Every plot they made raised the madman even higher. The ministers, desperate and afraid, contacted a neighboring king. They wrote a secret letter. "Attack our land, we will help you, but in return kill the madman, the king's general." The enemy king agreed. The battle begins. When war drums sounded, both armies marched to the border. The madman led the king's troops. As they entered the forest, he shouted, "Stop! I will fight their king alone first." Both armies halted. The two kings faced each other in the middle of the jungle. Suddenly, a massive lion leapt from the bushes, straight at the enemy king. Without thinking, the madman charged forward. Steel clashed. Roars echoed. Dust rose. After a fierce struggle, he killed the lion and saved the enemy king. The enemy king, gasping, said, "There will be no war. A man who saves his enemy must be noble." He forgave everyone. But when he ordered the treacherous ministers to be arrested, the madman stepped forward and shouted, "Touch none of them. They came with me. I will not let my men be harmed." Even his enemies were moved. His greatness spread across both kingdoms. The king married his daughter to the madman. The final wisdom. But jealousy still lived in the ministers' hearts. They planned one last conspiracy. Before they executed it, an elderly, wise minister stood and said, "Stop! Honor and disgrace belong only to Allah. If Allah has raised this man, none of you can bring him down. Even if you kill him, his honor will shine brighter. Jealousy destroys you, not him." His words touched their hearts. They repented. Years later, the madman passed away peacefully. The ministers returned to their duties, but changed forever. The message of the story: honor comes from Allah, disgrace comes from Allah, jealousy eats the heart, sincerity saves the soul. If the world stands against you, but Allah stands with you, you will always win.